The year was 2387, and Earth was dying. Not from war or disease, but from fear, the kind of fear that made grown men cry and strong women shake in their sleep. The Vorthek Empire had come from the dark between stars, and they brought death with them. Jack Morrison stood on the bridge of the UES Defender, watching the stars through the big window. He was 42 years old, with gray hair starting to show at his temples and lines around his eyes from too many years of worry. His uniform was clean but worn, and his hands were steady on the metal rail in front of him. The ship hummed around him like a living thing. The Defender was not like the old ships that Earth used to build. This one was different. It was made with alien parts that human hands had learned to copy. The engines glowed with strange blue light, and the weapons could punch holes through mountains. But even with all this power, Jack knew it might not be enough. Lieutenant Kate Williams walked up to him, her boots making soft sounds on the metal floor. She was 31 years old, with short brown hair and quick green eyes that missed nothing. She had been with Jack for 3 years, ever since the first Vorthek ships had been spotted near Jupiter. "Sir," she said, holding a datapad in her hands, "the reports from the outer colonies just came in. The Vorthek hit 3 more systems yesterday. They left nothing behind." Jack took the pad and looked at the numbers. 3 star systems, millions of people, all gone in less than a day. The Vorthek did not take prisoners. They did not want to rule humans or make them slaves. They wanted them dead, all of them. "How many ships do they have now?" Jack asked. "Over 300, sir, maybe more." "Our scouts can't get close enough to count them all?" Jack nodded and handed the pad back. 300 ships against 47 human vessels. The math was simple and terrible. But math had never stopped humans before. Sergeant Paul Davis sat at the communication desk, his fingers dancing over the controls. He was 26 years old, from a small town in Texas that the Vorthek had burned 2 months ago. His family was gone, but he still smiled when he talked to other crew members. Jack had never understood how Paul could do that. "Commander," Paul said, turning in his chair, "we're getting a message from Earth Command. Admiral Carter wants to talk to you." Jack walked over to the main screen. The image flickered and then showed the face of Admiral Lisa Carter. She was sitting in her office on Earth, but she looked older than Jack remembered. The war had aged. "Them all, Jack," she said, her voice coming through the speakers. "I won't lie to you. The diplomatic talks failed. The Vorthek won't even talk to us anymore. They think we're bugs to be stepped on. I know, Admiral. We all knew this was coming. The Vorthek fleet will reach Earth in 72 hours. We're sending you all the ships we have left, but it won't be enough. Not against what they're bringing." Jack looked at the tactical display beside the screen. Red dots showed the Vorthek fleet moving toward Earth like a red tide. Blue dots showed the human ships, so few they looked lost in the dark. "What are your orders, Admiral?" Carter was quiet for a long moment. When she spoke again, her voice was soft. "Stop them, Jack. Whatever it takes, stop them." The transmission ended, and the bridge was quiet. Jack could hear the soft hum of the ship's engines and the quiet beeping of the control panels. His crew was watching him, waiting for him to say something. These people had left their families and their homes to follow him into space. They deserved to know the truth. "You all heard that," Jack said. "The Vorthek will be here in 3 days. We have 47 ships. They have over 300. The smart thing to do would be to run." He looked at each of his crew members. Kate Williams, who had turned down a safe job on Mars to stay with the fleet. Paul Davis, who had nothing left to lose but still fought for others. Dr. Helen Baker, the science officer, who was 53 years old and could have retired years ago. Chief Engineer Bobby Clark, who talked to the ship's engines like they were his children. "But we're not running," Jack continued. "We're going to make our stand here. We're going to show the Vorthek what humans do when someone threatens our home." The bridge crew nodded. No one looked scared. They all knew what they had signed up for when they joined the fleet. They were volunteers, every one of them. They could have stayed safe on Earth or run to the outer colonies. Instead, they chose to fight. Jack walked through the ship after his shift ended. The corridors were narrow and filled with pipes and cables, but they felt like home. He had been living on ships for most of his adult life, and he knew every sound they made. In the engine room, he found Danny Rodriguez working on one of the power cores. Danny was 28 years old, with oil on his hands and a picture of his family taped to his toolbox. His wife, Maria, was back on Earth with their twin daughters, Lucy and Rosa. The girls were only 5 years old. "How are the engines, Danny?" Jack asked. Danny looked up and smiled. "They're singing, Commander. These alien parts, they're something else. I've never seen engines like this. They're almost like they're alive. Will they hold together for the battle?" "They'll hold. I promise you that. These engines will keep running as long as we need them to." Jack patted Danny on the shoulder and kept walking. In the weapons bay, he found Amy Johnson checking the new torpedo systems. Amy was 23 years old, the youngest officer on the ship. She had grown up on Mars and joined the fleet when the Vorthak destroyed the research station where her parents worked. "How are the new weapons, Amy?" "They're ready, sir. Dr. Baker's modifications are working. These torpedoes pack more punch than anything we've ever had. The Vorthak shields won't know what hit them." "Good. We're going to need every advantage we can get." Amy nodded, her face serious. "Sir, do you really think we can win?" Jack was quiet for a moment. The honest answer was no, they could not win. Not against those numbers. But that did not mean they should not try. "We're going to hurt them, Amy. We're going to hurt them bad. And maybe that will be enough." Late that night, Jack sat in his quarters, looking at a holographic message from his brother Tony. Tony was 5 years younger than Jack, with the same gray eyes but a face that had not been marked by war. He lived on Earth with his wife and 3 children, working as a teacher in Denver. "Hey, big brother," Tony said in the message. "I know you probably can't talk right now, but I wanted you to know that we're all thinking about you. The kids ask about Uncle Jack every day. They want to know when you're coming home." Tony's face was serious now. "I know what you're doing out there, Jack. I know you're protecting us. I want you to know that whatever happens, we're proud of you, all of us. You're showing the galaxy what humans are made of." The message ended, and Jack was alone in his quarters. He could hear the ship around him, the quiet sounds of a vessel moving through space. Somewhere out there, the Vorthak fleet was coming. In 72 hours, they would be here. Jack closed his eyes and thought about Earth, about blue skies and green grass and children playing in parks, about all the things worth fighting for, about all the things worth dying for. Tomorrow, he would start preparing his crew for the battle of their lives. Tonight, he would remember why they were fighting. 48 hours until the Vorthak fleet reached Earth. Jack Morrison had not slept well in 2 days. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw the red dots on the tactical display, moving closer to everything he had ever loved. He stood in the war room of the UES Defender, surrounded by his senior officers and the holographic displays that showed their battle plans. The room was small and filled with the soft blue light from the displays. Charts and data screens covered every wall, showing ship positions, weapon loads, and fuel levels. The air smelled like metal and electronics, the smell of a warship preparing for battle. Lieutenant Kate Williams stood beside the main display, pointing at the tactical map with a small laser pointer. Her face was calm, but Jack could see the tension in her shoulders. She had been working for 18 hours straight, planning their attack routes and calculating their chances. "The Vorthak fleet is moving in standard formation," she said to the group. 300 ships in a triangle pattern with their biggest vessels in the center. They're not trying to hide their numbers or their strength. They want us to see what we're facing." Jack nodded. The Vorthak had always been arrogant. They had conquered 17 star systems without losing a single major battle. They thought humans would run when they saw the size of their fleet. Dr. Helen Baker stepped forward, her gray hair pulled back in a tight bun. She was 53 years old and had been working on weapons research for most of her career. Her hands were stained with chemical burns from her experiments, but her eyes were bright with excitement. "The quantum torpedoes are ready," she said, her voice steady. We've modified them with Vorthek energy cores that we captured from their scout ships. The power output is incredible, but the weapons are unstable. They could blow up in our launch tubes if we're not careful." Chief Engineer Bobby Clark looked worried. He was a big man with thick arms and a beard that was more gray than black. He had been working on ships for 30 years, and he knew when something was dangerous. "How unstable are we talking about, Doc?" he asked. Helen pulled up a chart on the display. "There's a 15% chance of catastrophic failure with each torpedo we fire. But if they work, they should be able to punch through Vorthek shields like they're made of paper." Jack studied the numbers. 15% failure rate meant that some of their own ships might be destroyed by their own weapons. But without the quantum torpedoes, they had no chance at all against the Vorthak shields. "We'll take the risk," Jack said. "How many torpedoes do we have?" "Each ship carries 12. That's 564 torpedoes total for the whole fleet." Sergeant Paul Davis was monitoring the communication systems, listening to reports from the other ships in the fleet. His young face was serious as he turned to Jack. "Sir, Captain Murphy on the Courage is reporting engine problems. And Commander White on the Resilience says her armor plating is cracking under the stress tests." Jack felt a familiar weight in his chest. The human ships were old and overworked. They had been fighting the Vorthek for 3 years, and the constant battles had taken their toll. The alien technology they had added to their ships was powerful, but it was also hard on the human systems. "Tell Murphy to do what he can with the engines. We need every ship we have. And tell White that cracked armor is better than no armor." Paul nodded and turned back to his console. Jack could hear him speaking quietly into his headset, passing along orders to the other ships. The door to the war room opened, and Captain Steve Murphy walked in. He was a short man with red hair and freckles, but his eyes were hard as steel. He had been fighting the Vorthek longer than anyone except Jack, and his ship had been in more battles than any other vessel in the fleet. "Jack," Murphy said, shaking hands with the commander, "my engines are running at 120% power. My chief engineer says they'll hold together for the battle, but we can't push them much harder." "That's all we need, Steve. One battle." Commander Nancy White entered the room behind Murphy. She was a tall woman with short black hair and scars on her hands from her years as a fighter pilot. Her ship, the Resilience, was known for taking damage and keeping on fighting. "The new armor is holding," she said without waiting for Jack to ask. "It's not pretty, but it should stop most of what the Vorthak throw at us, at least for a while." Jack looked at his fellow commanders. These were the people who would lead humanity's last stand. They were tired and scared, but they were still here. They were still fighting. "Let's talk about the battle plan," Jack said, activating the main display. The holographic image showed the space around Earth, with the human fleet positioned near the asteroid belt. Kate Williams began the briefing. "We'll use the asteroids for cover and wait for the Vorthak fleet to come to us. When they get close, we'll hit them with everything we have. The quantum torpedoes first, then regular missiles, then energy weapons." "What about after the first attack?" Murphy asked. "We keep fighting," Jack said simply. "We hit them, fall back, and hit them again. We make them pay for every mile they advance toward Earth." Dr. Baker brought up another display showing the Vorthak ships. "Their shields are strong, but they have weak points. The energy cores that power their weapons create heat signatures we can target. If we can hit those spots with the quantum torpedoes, we can do serious damage." Bobby Clark was studying the engine readings from all the ships. "Commander, I have to be honest with you. Most of our ships are running on borrowed time. The alien technology is powerful, but it's burning out our systems. We might get one good fight out of these engines, but that's it." Jack nodded. He had expected this. The human ships were not designed to handle Vorthek technology. They were pushing their vessels beyond safe limits, and everyone knew it. "One good fight is all we need," Jack said. The meeting continued for 2 more hours. They discussed attack patterns, communication codes, and backup plans. But everyone in the room knew that all their planning might not matter. The Vorthak had better ships, better weapons, and more experience. The humans had courage and desperation. But sometimes that was not enough. When the meeting ended, Jack walked through the ship again. It was late in the ship's night cycle, but many crew members were still awake. They were checking weapons, running diagnostics, and writing letters to their families. In the medical bay, Dr. Sharon Lee was preparing for the battle. She was a quiet woman in her 40s who had joined the fleet after the Vorthek destroyed the hospital where she worked. Her medical supplies were laid out on tables, ready for the wounded who would come. "How are you holding up, Sharon?" Jack asked. "I'm ready," she said, not looking up from her work. "I've got enough supplies to treat 50 serious injuries. After that, we'll be using hope and prayer." Jack found Father Pete Morris in the ship's small chapel. The chaplain was an old man with white hair and kind eyes. He had been in the fleet since the beginning, offering comfort to crew members who were far from home. "Father," Jack said, sitting down in one of the simple chairs. "Jack," the chaplain replied, "are you ready for what's coming?" "I don't know if anyone can be ready for this. We're about to face the biggest enemy fleet in known history. Most of us won't survive the battle," Father Morris nodded. "But you're going to fight anyway. We have to. If we don't stop them here, there won't be anywhere left to run." The old chaplain was quiet for a moment. "I've been thinking about courage. Lately, real courage isn't the absence of fear. It's doing what needs to be done even when you're terrified." Jack looked at the small cross on the wall. "Do you think we have a chance?" "I think you have something the Vorthak don't understand. You have people who are willing to die for something bigger than themselves. That's a powerful thing." Later that night, Jack stood on the observation deck, looking out at the stars. The Vorthak fleet was out there somewhere, getting closer with each passing hour. In less than 2 days, this peaceful space would become a battlefield. Communications Officer Tracy Green found him there. She was a young woman from California who had joined the fleet when her home city was evacuated. She handed Jack a data pad. "Sir, we intercepted some Vorthak communications. Our translators worked on them for hours." Jack read the translation. The Vorthak commander, who called himself the Void Bringer, had sent a message to his fleet. The message was simple and terrible. No human ship would be allowed to surrender. No human would be taken prisoner. This was to be a war of complete destruction. "They're not giving us any choice," Jack said quietly. "No, sir, they're not." Jack looked at the stars again. Somewhere out there was Earth with its blue oceans and green continents. Somewhere out there were billions of people who were counting on 47 warships to save them. "Get some sleep, Tracy. Tomorrow we start the final preparations. What about you, sir? When was the last time you slept?" And Jack smiled, but it was a tired smile. "I'll sleep when this is over." Tracy left him alone on the observation deck. Jack stood there for a long time, thinking about the battle to come. The Vorthak had ships and weapons and experience. But the humans had something else. They had the knowledge that they were fighting for their home, their families, and their future. In 48 hours, the Vorthak would learn what that meant. 24 hours until the Vorthak fleet reached Earth. Jack Morrison stood in the command center of the UES Defender, watching his crew make the final preparations for battle. The ship hummed with activity as every system was checked and rechecked. There would be no second chances once the fighting started. The human fleet had taken position in the asteroid belt, using the floating rocks as cover. 47 ships spread out among the asteroids, waiting for an enemy that outnumbered them 7-1. The plan was simple because simple plans worked best in battle. They would wait for the Vorthak fleet to come close, then hit them with everything they had. Lieutenant Kate Williams was at the tactical station, her fingers dancing over the controls as she coordinated the final positioning of the fleet. Her face was calm, but Jack could see the worry in her eyes. She had run the battle simulations hundreds of times, and the results were always the same. Most of the human ships would not survive the first hour of fighting. "Fleet positioning is complete, sir," she reported. "All ships are in position and ready for combat." Jack nodded and walked over to the weapons station where Lieutenant Carl Hayes was running final checks on the quantum torpedoes. Carl was 29 years old, with steady hands and a mind for details. He had been working on the new weapons for weeks, trying to make them as safe as possible. "How are our special weapons, Carl?" Jack asked. "They're as ready as they're going." "To be, sir." "The alien energy cores are stable for now, but once we start firing, all bets are off. Each torpedo has enough power to crack a moon, but the containment fields are barely holding." Jack looked at the display showing the torpedo status. Green lights meant ready to fire, yellow meant caution. Red meant danger. Right now, most of the lights were yellow, dancing on the edge of red. "What's our failure rate looking like?" "Still, around 15%, sir. Maybe a little higher. The alien technology doesn't like being pushed this hard." Chief Engineer Bobby Clark appeared at Jack's shoulder. His face was covered in sweat and his hands were dirty from working on the engines. He had been pushing the ship's systems to their limits, trying to squeeze every bit of power out of the hybrid engines. "Commander, I need to tell you something," Bobby said. "The engines are running hot. Real hot. We're already past the red line. On most systems. Once we start maneuvering in combat, we're going to start losing power. How long do we have? Maybe 2 hours of heavy combat. 3 if we're lucky. After that, we'll be running on emergency power." Jack put his hand on Bobby's shoulder. 2 hours should be enough. One way or another, the battle will be over by then. Navigator Susan Phillips was at her station, plotting the attack routes. That would take the human ships through the asteroid field. She was a quiet woman in her 30s who had grown up on a mining station. She knew how to move ships through dangerous spaces. Double quotes, sir. "I've got our approach vectors locked in," she said. "We can use the asteroids to mask our heat signatures until we're ready to attack. The Vorthak won't see us coming until it's too late." "Good work, Susan. Make sure all the other ships have the navigation data." The bridge door opened and Dr. Helen Baker walked in, carrying a data pad and looking excited. The science officer had been working around the clock on the quantum torpedoes, trying to make them as effective as possible. "Jack, I've got some good news," she said. "We've been analyzing the Vorthak shield frequencies from the last battle. I think we can tune our weapons to punch through their defenses more effectively. What do you need?" "Just a few more hours to recalibrate the torpedo." "Guidance systems. If I'm right, we can increase our effectiveness by 30%. Jack looked at the countdown timer on the main display. 23 hours and 47 minutes until the Vorthak fleet arrived. There was time, but not much. "Do it, Helen. Every advantage helps." The communication console beeped, and Sergeant Paul Davis answered it. His face grew serious as he listened to the incoming message. "Sir, we're getting a priority transmission from Earth. It's President Cooper." The main screen flickered and showed the face of President Alan Cooper. He was sitting in his office in Washington, but he looked older than Jack remembered. The weight of leading humanity through its darkest hour had aged him. "Commander Morrison," the president said, "I want you to know that the entire world is watching. Every man, woman, and child on Earth is counting on you and your brave crews. We won't let you down, Mr. President." "I know you won't. I also want you to know that if things go badly, we have evacuation ships ready. We can get some people too. The outer colonies, but not many. Most of humanity will live or die based on what happens in the next few days." Jack felt the weight of 6 billion lives pressing down on him. "We understand, sir. We'll hold the line. I know you will. Give them hell, Jack." The transmission ended, and the bridge was quiet for a moment. Everyone had heard the president's words. Everyone understood what they meant. There was no backup plan. No reinforcements coming. This was humanity's last stand. Jack activated the ship's internal communication system. His voice would reach every crew member on the Defender, from the engine room to the medical bay. "This is the commander," he said. "In 24 hours we'll be in battle. I want everyone to know that I'm proud to serve with you. Each of you volunteered for this mission, knowing what it would mean. You left your families and your comfortable lives to stand between Earth and destruction." He paused, thinking about the right words to say. "The Vorthak think we're weak. They think we'll run when we see their fleet. They're about to learn that they're wrong. We're going to show them what humans do when someone threatens our home." Jack walked through the ship after his shift, visiting each section and talking to the crew. In the medical bay, Dr. Sharon Lee was organizing her supplies. She had requested extra painkillers and surgical equipment, knowing that the battle would bring many wounded. "How are you feeling, Sharon?" Jack asked. "Ready," she said simply. "I've treated battle wounds before, but nothing like what's coming. I'll do my best to save everyone I can." In the engine room, Danny Rodriguez was fine-tuning the power systems. His family photo was still taped to his toolbox, and he touched it every time he passed by. His wife, Maria, and daughters, Lucy and Rosa, were safe on Earth, but that safety depended on the engines he was nursing. "The engines are singing, Commander," Danny said with a smile. "They're running hot, but they're running strong. These alien parts, they're like nothing I've ever seen. It's like they want to fight." "Keep them running, Danny. We're going to need every bit of power we can get." In the mess hall, Jack found a group of crew members sharing stories and pictures from home. There was Jimmy Brooks, the young private who had been scared but determined. There was Linda Parker, the veteran sergeant who had seen too many battles. There was Tom Wilson, the maintenance chief who kept the ship running. "Commander," Jimmy said, standing up when Jack entered. "We were just talking about what we're going to do after the battle." "What's that?" "We're going to have the biggest party Earth has ever seen," Linda said with a grin. "And we're going to make sure everyone remembers what we did here." Jack smiled. "I like that plan." Father Pete Morris was holding a service in the main hangar. Crew members from different faiths and backgrounds had gathered together, finding strength in unity. The chaplain's voice echoed through the large space. "We gather here not just as warriors but as guardians," he said. "We stand watch over everything we hold dear. Tomorrow we face the darkness, but we do not face it alone. We face it together, as one people with one purpose." The service continued with songs and prayers from many different traditions. Jack listened to the voices of his crew, raised in harmony despite their different beliefs. This was what they were fighting for, this unity, this hope. Later that evening, Jack received reports from the other ships in the fleet. Captain Murphy on the Courage reported that his crew was ready, despite the engine problems. Commander White on the Resilient said her armor modifications were holding. Captain Lisa Grant on the Defiant reported that her new weapon systems were functioning perfectly. Communications. Officer Tracy Green intercepted more Vorthic transmissions. The alien fleet was maintaining radio silence, but their navigation beacons were still active. The enemy was 18 hours away and closing fast. "Sir," Tracy said, "there's something else." "We picked up a transmission from the Vorthak commander. It wasn't directed at us, but our computers translated it." "What did it say?" "The Voidbringer told his fleet that this would be their easiest victory. He said humans were cowards who would surrender at the first sign of real fighting." Jack almost laughed. The Vorthic commander had made the same mistake that many others had made throughout human history. He had underestimated the stubborn determination of ordinary people fighting for their homes. "He's going to be disappointed," Jack said. As the night cycle began, Jack stood on the observation deck one more time. The asteroid belt stretched out around them, chunks of rock and metal floating in the darkness. In less than a day, this peaceful space would become a graveyard. But it would not be a graveyard for humans alone. The Vorthak were coming expecting an easy victory. They were about to learn that humans had been fighting impossible odds for thousands of years, and they had gotten very good at it. The moment had come. Jack Morrison stood on the bridge of the UES Defender, watching through the viewports as space itself seemed to tear open. The Vorthak fleet was arriving, and the sight of it made his blood run cold. 300 ships emerged from hyperspace like dark angels of death, their crystalline hulls catching the light of distant stars and turning it into something cold and terrible. The enemy vessels were huge, each one larger than anything humans had ever built. They moved in perfect formation, a wall of alien metal and energy that stretched across the void. Their shields glowed with a sickly green light. and their weapons ports gaped like hungry mouths ready to devour everything in their path. Lieutenant Kate Williams was at her station, her hands steady on the controls despite the fear that Jack could see in her eyes. The tactical display showed the true scale of what they faced. The red dots representing the Vorthak fleet covered the screen like a disease, while the blue dots of the human ships looked tiny and lost in comparison. "Enemy fleet is in position, sir," Kate reported, her voice calm despite everything. "They're holding formation at the edge of the asteroid belt. It looks like they're scanning for us." Jack nodded. The human ships were hidden among the asteroids, their heat signatures masked by the rocky debris. But that advantage would not last long. The Vorthak had sensors that could find a needle in a haystack, and they were getting closer every minute. Sergeant Paul Davis was monitoring enemy communications, his young face tight with concentration. The alien voices came through the speakers as harsh, grinding sounds that made everyone on the bridge uncomfortable. The translation computers worked frantically to make sense of the alien language. "Sir, the Vorthak commander is broadcasting to his fleet," Paul said. "The computers are translating it now." The harsh alien voice was replaced by the cold, mechanical sound of the translation computer. "This is the Void Bringer, commander of the cleansing fleet. Humans of this system, you have one opportunity to surrender. Power down your weapons and prepare to be destroyed quickly. Resistance will only prolong your suffering." Jack almost smiled. The Vorthak commander still did not understand humans. He was offering them a chance to die quietly, as if that was some kind of mercy. He did not know that humans had never been good at dying quietly. "Open a channel to the entire fleet," Jack ordered. Paul's fingers danced over his controls. "Channel open, sir. All human ships are listening." Jack looked around the bridge at his crew. These people had followed him across the galaxy, trusting him to lead them in humanity's darkest hour. Kate Williams, who had given up a safe life to fight for Earth. Paul Davis, who had lost everything but still found reasons to smile. Dr. Helen Baker, working at her science station even now, making final adjustments to their weapons. Chief Engineer Bobby Clark, monitoring the engines that would either carry them to victory or to their deaths. Every face on the bridge reflected the same emotion. Not fear, though Jack knew they were all afraid. Not despair, though they all knew the odds. What he saw in their eyes was determination, the kind of stubborn, angry determination that had carried humans through every dark moment in their history. "This is Commander Morrison to all ships," Jack began, his voice carrying across space to every human vessel hiding in the asteroid belt. "The Vorthak fleet has arrived. They think we're going to surrender? They think we're going to roll over and die, like good little humans." He paused, looking out at the enemy fleet. 300 ships full of aliens who thought humans were nothing more than insects to be crushed. They were about to learn how wrong they were. "They don't understand us," Jack continued. "They don't understand that we're the children of Earth. The descendants of people who crossed oceans in wooden boats and climbed mountains because they were there. We're the species that looked at the stars and decided to visit them. We're the people who never learned how to quit." The tactical display showed the Vorthak fleet beginning to move forward, searching the asteroid belt for the hidden human ships. Their sensors swept through space like searchlights, getting closer to finding the first human vessel. "In 30 seconds, we're going to show them what humans do when someone threatens our home," Jack said, his voice growing stronger. "We're going to hit them with everything we have, and we're going to keep hitting them until they run back to whatever dark corner of space they came from." Chief Engineer Bobby Clark's voice came over the intercom from the engine room. "Engines are ready, Commander. Give us the word, and we'll show these aliens what human engineering can do." Dr. Helen Baker looked up from her science station. "Quantum torpedoes are armed and ready, sir. All systems are showing green. We're as ready as we're going to be." Jack could hear similar reports coming in from the other ships. Captain Murphy, "On the Courage, his engines running hot but ready for battle." Commander White on the Resilience, her experimental armor holding strong. Captain Grant on the Defiant, her crew eager to prove themselves against the enemy that had destroyed so many human worlds. The Vorthak fleet was getting closer now, their massive ships moving through the asteroid field like predators stalking prey. Their weapons were charging, energy building in their gun ports like gathering storms. In a few minutes, they would be close enough to start shooting. 20 seconds to engagement, Kate Williams reported. Jack activated the fleet communication system one more time. Every human ship, every crew member, every person who had volunteered to stand between Earth and destruction was listening. These would be the last words he spoke before the battle began, and he wanted them to count. "All ships, this is Commander Morrison," he said, his voice carrying the weight of humanity's hopes and fears. "I want you all to remember something. The Vorthak came here expecting to find prey. They're about to discover they found predators." The enemy ships were close enough now that Jack could see details on their hulls. Strange symbols that might have been writing or weapons ports or decorations, it did not matter. In a few seconds, those ships would be targets, nothing more. "We are the children of Earth," Jack continued, "the descendants of every human who ever stood up to impossible odds. We carry with us the dreams of our ancestors and the hopes of our children. We fight not just for ourselves, but for every person. Whoever looked up at the stars and wondered what was out there, the Vorthak fleet had found them." Alert signals began flashing on the tactical display as enemy sensors locked onto the first human ships. There was no more time for hiding. More time for preparation. The moment of truth had arrived. "Today, we show the galaxy what humanity is truly capable of," Jack said, his voice rising above the sound of alarms and the hum of charging weapons. "We show them that humans don't run from a fight. We don't surrender when the odds are bad. We stand and fight no matter what." The first Vorthak ship was turning toward them, its massive guns beginning to glow with deadly energy. Other enemy vessels were following suit, their perfect formation shifting as they prepared to destroy the human fleet. 300 ships against 47, but Jack Morrison was not intimidated. "Remember who you are," he said, his final words, before the battle began echoing through every human ship in the fleet. "Remember who you fight for. Remember that no matter what happens here today, we go down swinging." The Vorthak flagship was raising its shields, energy crackling around its hull like lightning. Other enemy ships were doing the same, preparing for what they thought would be a quick and easy slaughter. They still did not understand what they were facing. "All ships, attack pattern Alpha," Jack ordered, his hand hovering over the control that would launch humanity's last desperate gambit. "Let's show them what humans do when you threaten our home." The bridge of the Defender was silent for a heartbeat, suspended between peace and war, between hope and despair. Then Jack Morrison spoke the word that would change everything: engage. And 47 human warships erupted from the asteroid belt like avenging angels, their quantum torpedoes blazing trails of blue fire across the void as they raced toward an enemy that had never known defeat. The Battle of Sol had begun, and with it, humanity's fight for survival among the stars. The space around Earth exploded into chaos as 47 human warships charged toward 300 Vorthak vessels. Jack Morrison's final words still echoed through the communication channels as the used Defender led the attack, her quantum torpedoes streaking across the void like blue comets, carrying humanity's fury. The first wave of torpedoes hit the Vorthak formation with devastating effect. The alien commanders had expected token resistance from what they considered a primitive species. Instead, they found themselves facing weapons that tore through their shields like paper. Explosions bloomed across the enemy fleet as quantum energy ripped through hulls that had never been breached before. Jack gripped the command rail as the Defender shook from enemy fire. The bridge lights flickered and sparks flew from damaged control panels. Lieutenant Kate Williams worked frantically at her station, coordinating the attack while dodging plasma bolts that could vaporize their ship in seconds, direct hit on. "The enemy flagship," she reported, her voice steady despite the chaos around them. "Their shields are down to 60%. Chief Engineer Bobby Clark's voice crackled over the intercom from deep in the ship. "Commander, the engines are holding, but we're running hot. Real hot. We've got maybe an hour before we start losing power." Jack nodded, not taking his eyes off the tactical display. An hour would have to be enough. The human ships were dancing through the Vorthak formation like fighters taking on giants, using their smaller size and desperate courage to strike at weak points and then retreat before the enemy could respond. Captain Steve Murphy's voice came through the communication system, filled with grim satisfaction. This is the courage. We just took out a Vorthak cruiser with a full spread of quantum torpedoes. These alien shields aren't so tough after all. But the victory came at a price. Jack watched in horror as the U.S. Valiant, commanded by Captain Tom Richards, took a direct hit from a Vorthak heavy weapon. The human ship simply vanished in a ball of superheated plasma, taking all hands with it. 38 brave souls gone in an instant. Valiant is down, Kate reported, her voice tight with grief. No survivors. More human ships were falling now. The U.S. Ranger exploded when her quantum torpedoes overloaded. The UES Guardian was cut in half by concentrated enemy fire. But for every human ship that died, they took Vorthak vessels with them. The alien fleet, invincible for so long, was bleeding. Dr. Helen Baker looked up from her science station, her face grim but determined. Commander, I'm reading massive energy fluctuations in the Vorthak flagship. Their main reactor is unstable. If we can hit it with everything we have, we might be able to take out their command ship. Jack made his decision instantly. All remaining ships, concentrate fire on the flagship. This is our chance to cut off the head of the snake. The surviving human vessels turned toward the massive Vorthak command ship like a pack of wolves converging on wounded prey. The Defender led the charge, her remaining quantum torpedoes primed and ready. Behind her came the Courage, the Resilience, the Defiant, and the handful of other ships that had survived the first hour of battle. The Vorthak flagship was a mountain of crystalline metal and energy, bristling with weapons that could destroy planets. But its shields were failing, and its reactor was going critical. The alien commander, the Voidbringer, who had boasted of an easy victory, was learning what humans meant when they said they went down swinging. Firing all torpedoes, Lieutenant? Carl Hayes reported from the weapons station. Impact in 15 seconds. The quantum torpedoes raced across space, followed by every missile and energy beam the remaining human ships could fire. The Vorthak flagship tried to defend itself, its point defense systems working frantically to stop the incoming barrage. But there were too many weapons. Fired by people who had nothing left to lose, the first torpedoes punched through the flagships, weakened shields, and buried themselves deep in the alien ship's hull. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the Vorthak vessel began to glow from within, its crystalline structure crackling with unstable energy. "Get us out of here," Jack ordered. "That ship is going to blow." The Defender turned away from the flagship. Just as it exploded, the destruction was beyond anything Jack had ever seen. The massive alien ship simply tore itself apart, releasing energy that lit up space like a newborn star. The explosion was so bright that the bridge crew had to shield their eyes. When the light faded, the Vorthak flagship was gone. In its place was an expanding cloud of debris and superheated gas. The death of their command ship sent shockwaves through the alien fleet. For the first time in their history, the Vorthak faced an enemy that could hurt them, but the human fleet was dying too. Of the 47 ships that had begun the battle, only 12 were still fighting. The others were dead or so badly damaged that they could no longer fight. The survivors were running on emergency power, their weapons nearly exhausted, their crews pushed beyond all endurance. Commander Nancy White's voice came through the static-filled communication channel. "This is the Resilience. We've lost main power and most of our weapons, but we're still here, and we're still fighting." Captain Murphy chimed in from the Courage. "Same here. My engines are about to give out, but we've got a few tricks left." Jack looked at the tactical display. The Vorthak fleet had lost over 100 ships, including their flagship. The survivors were pulling back, their perfect formation broken, their confidence shattered. But there were still almost 200 enemy vessels, more than enough to finish off the remaining human ships and continue on to Earth. "Sir," Kate Williams said quietly, "we're getting a transmission from the Vorthak fleet. They want to talk." Jack almost laughed. Now they wanted to talk. After promising to destroy every human in the galaxy, after boasting about their easy victory, the aliens wanted to negotiate. It was almost funny if it had not cost so many lives. Put them through, Jack said. The main screen flickered and showed the face of an alien commander. The Vorthak looked like a cross between an insect and a machine, with multiple eyes and metallic skin. When it spoke, its voice was translated by the ship's computers into cold, mechanical words. "Human commander," the alien said, "you have proven yourselves to be more formidable than we anticipated. We are prepared to offer terms." "What kind of terms?" Jack asked, though he already knew what the answer would be. "Surrender now, and we will make your deaths quick. Continue to resist, and we will hunt down every human in the galaxy and make them suffer before they die." Jack looked around the bridge at his crew. These people had followed him into hell and come out fighting. They had lost friends and shipmates, had pushed their ships beyond all limits, had faced impossible odds without flinching. They deserved better than surrender. "I have a counteroffer," Jack said. "Turn around and go home. Leave the system and never come back. Do that, and we'll let you live." The alien commander's multiple eyes widened in what might have been surprise or rage. "You are in no position to make demands, human. You have 12 ships. We have nearly 200. "That's true," Jack admitted. "But you've learned something today that you didn't know this morning. You've learned that humans don't give up. We don't surrender. We don't quit. And most importantly, you've learned that you can be beaten." The alien was silent for a long moment. When it spoke again, its voice carried a note of uncertainty that had not been there before. "You cannot win. Even if you destroy every ship in this fleet, more will come. The Vorthak Empire spans 1,000 worlds. Maybe," Jack said. "But they'll know what happened here. They'll know that a handful of human ships fought 300 of your best and made you bleed. They'll know that we're not the easy prey you thought we were." The transmission ended abruptly. On the tactical display, Jack watched as the Vorthak fleet began to withdraw. The surviving alien ships turned away from Earth and headed back toward the edge of the solar system. They had not been defeated, but they had been hurt badly enough to make them think twice about continuing the attack. The Battle of Sol was over. 12 human ships remained out of the original 47, too damaged to pursue the retreating enemy. But Earth still spun in its orbit, and humanity still lived. Jack Morrison's last words before the battle had proven true. They had shown the galaxy what humans did when threatened, and the galaxy had taken notice. In the days that followed, word of the battle spread across space. The Vorthak Empire, shocked by their first major defeat, found their conquered worlds rising in rebellion. Other species, inspired by humanity's courage, began to resist alien oppression. The words Jack Morrison had spoken before entering his final battle became a rallying cry for freedom across the galaxy. The human race had faced extinction and emerged stronger. They had proven that courage and determination could overcome any odds. And they had shown the universe that when someone threatened their home, humans would always go down swinging. Sometimes they would not go down at all.